Welcome. This is Meridith Elliott Powell, and I'm here with my colleague Mary Kelly, and we are super excited to be presenting this webinar today on the 5 biggest mistakes you may be making when it comes to succession planning, but more importantly, the solutions that you need to avoid them. That is me, that is Mary right there in that big picture, and that is the powerful book we wrote, Truly the Guide, on who comes next, what you need to know to really build your leadership bench. Mary, it's succession planning made easy.
So this is succession planning made easy because so many organizations right now are struggling. And it's succession planning that's not only just about the person at the top, but it's also throughout the organization. And this is where we see a big challenge right now. Look, our top leaders right now have a lot to think about. There's a lot going on. There is a lot of uncertainty. And we as leaders and part of the planning team and part of the executive team and part of senior leadership and as part of boards all have to be looking at where this organization is going to go in the future and how we're going to build it to its best potential. And Meridith, that really is all about the people.
It really is all about the people. I mean, the value, there is so much value in succession planning, but it's really that it ensures your organization is well positioned to serve your customers, care for your employees, and achieve your goals. I have often said, and Mary, I know you're right there with me, that the best investment you can make as a leader is in your people and the depth of your leadership bench. There's so little you can control in today's marketplace. You can't control the election. You can't control interest rates. You can't control regulation. You can't control competition or technology. But you do have control over the power of the people that you surround yourself with. And the stronger and deeper your leadership bench, the more successful you are going to be.
And that is such a great point, especially during this time where our unemployment rates are a little bit higher. And that means now is a great time to be looking for talent for your team into the future. A year ago, a lot of these people were not available. And now you've got a talent pool to pick from that maybe before you did not have. And every good leader, like every good coach, is constantly looking for great talent.
That's right. So succession planning is something that we talk quite a bit about. Mary, I was talking with Libby Gill the other day, a colleague of ours, and she's writing a new book that's coming out, I believe, in the spring, but it's really interesting concept. She wrote it in conjunction with a university where they went in and studied today's biggest and most influential organizations and about the gap between actually talking about leadership training and actually doing leadership training, and just how many of those organizations actually had leadership and succession planning at the top of their priority list. But when you looked at how much they were actually doing, it was pretty slim to none. That we are still, even in 2020, putting leaders in positions of leadership without giving them the training and the development to do it. So today we want to focus on some of the biggest succession planning mistakes that you're making and how you can avoid them. Because succession planning is one of those topics as well. We talk about it quite a bit, but far too often we don't do the succession plan until we need the succession plan. And what Mary and I want to help you do, and what our passion is helping organizations plan long before they need them.
It's kind of like your kitchen stove. You know it can catch on fire and you know you have a fire extinguisher, but that's not the plan we're trying to talk about. We're trying to get ahead of it. Now, you need the flame, you need the heat, you need that energy, but you also don't want the crisis situation. And for many organizations, when an executive, whether it's the top person or not, when an executive either gets sick or gets promoted or suddenly decides to retire or has to leave for some kind of other personal reason to care for an aging parent or their spouse or a child, which are the most common reasons executives leave the job early, all of a sudden they're left scrambling. And many employees, many senior leaders think, well, the person at the top has a plan for this. And what do we know about that, Meridith? We know that's not the case.
Far too often. All right. So enough about succession planning and the overall big picture. Let's dive into the 5 biggest succession planning mistakes and what you need to avoid them. So drum roll, please. Here we go. Mistake number 1, procrastination. Mary, what do you see out there when it comes to leaders procrastinating when it comes to succession planning?
On day-to-day things, we are focused on what we need to do that day. We are fire stomping. We are putting out the fires. We're putting out the crisis. We're handling the things that pop up that day. In my morning client call, the CEO said, I have to plan time. What this has made me realize is I have to plan time into the week for the emergencies that invariably crop up that I am the only person who can handle it. I said, you're absolutely right. And this is why succession planning and other things which don't seem quite to be so emergent or urgent get pushed off to the side. So some people intend to do it, but they simply procrastinate because day-to-day operations, day-to-day crises, day-to-day events, when somebody calls up and says, hey, I've got a $500,000 project for you, succession planning goes to the back burner. And I see this as one of the big problems.
I had a client this morning as well that she said to me, she said, I said, what changes do you want to make? What do you want to focus on? And she said, I need to start thinking about the company in the long term rather than the short term. And I thought that was a really powerful self-assessment and observation that if you want your company to be successful, you have to stop putting off the decisions that are going to make sure that you are successful long term. And procrastinating on succession planning is probably one of those. And we get it. It can seem complicated. It can seem overwhelming. But here's what you need to do if you want to quit procrastinating. Pull the trigger and start beginning your succession planning. Number one is go ahead and create a plan. I mean, Mary and I are really big fans of just starting small. It doesn't have to be a big and a complicated plan, right, Mary?
No, you just need to start. It's taking that first step. The whole idea of climbing Mount Everest, it starts with a single step, and it's the same with succession planning.
Yeah, we advise people just to start with the key roles. Just choose a few people that literally you would probably cry if they went across the street and went to work for somebody else. And once you pick out those key roles, just get some goals and set some deadlines for yourself. In fact, a great deadline would be to have your key roles selected and begin the process of at least having that conversation with some people before we start the new year. All right. Let's jump into succession planning mistake number 2. You choose your favorites.
Now, this isn't really choosing your favorites. We're not talking nepotism. We're not talking that, but we are talking about what you need to focus on moving forward. What would be key in your organization if you lost them due to, again, illness or some kind of movement or something like that? We've got to be laser-like focused on where we're starting.
Yeah, you've got to know that, all too often, this is far more when you think about succession planning, you need to really begin to think about who's really qualified and has shown the experience to do it. One of my favorite examples around this is I just finished reading Lights Out, which was the story of the fall of General Electric. And General Electric was famous for succession planning. They always had a depth of leadership. In fact, such qualified leaders that the leaders who weren't chosen to be the successor were often hired gleefully by other companies. But what Jack Welch did was he picked somebody that he liked over somebody who was qualified to do the job. And so you got to realize when you build your succession plan, you may not always be the best person to objectively find somebody who's really qualified to do the job. So what's the solution to that?
So as we have talked about, and you and I have done this with countless organizations, we say whatever job you're trying to think about filling, you create an avatar for that job, not about the personality, not about the charm and charisma. That might be nice, but we have to look at what would be the key criteria. What characteristics does the perfect person going into that job, what would they have? And that becomes this avatar. So when you start the job search, it's not just your key qualifications ranked, 1 to 10, but it's a combination of all of those. And there are some things that moving forward, we know key leaders have to have. We know, Meridith, right now, and you and I have talked about it, that the CEO now in U.S. organizations tend to be 6 to 8 years older than they were 20 years ago. And this is because you need to have more experience with people. You need to have more understanding of regulatory issues, especially in your not just your own business, but the entire industry as a whole and what's going to change in the future. And budgets have become far more complex. So people, regulations, and budgets have mandated really that our senior leaders are better, more experienced. And while it's very tempting, especially in family businesses, to make the heir apparent your favorite, your chosen one, or your child, they may not be the best choice.
Yeah, this is building the avatar is one of my favorite things to do. And, Mary, both in our book and in our course, we devote an entire chapter to this. I think this is one of the most powerful projects we do with companies. It's that before you need to choose a successor, let's really sit down as a team and decide who makes it in this company. Why are they successful? What skills do they have that we've taught them? But what inherent talents or qualities did they bring to the table? And once you have this avatar, you can use this avatar like a litmus test. So as you interview people, you may like them, you may joke with them, you may have a good time with them, but then you're really backing up and you're asking yourself, do they align with this avatar? And then you end up choosing the candidate, not that you like the most, not the person you want to most go share a steak with, but the one who truly is qualified to lead your organization, both from a qualities and values as well as a skills standpoint.
And you and I both know, Meridith, it is easy to hire somebody like you. Yes. It is easy to hire somebody who looks like you, sounds like you, has your same background. I joke around a lot of times because I was Navy. I'm like, it's really easy for me to hire another Navy person because we speak the same language. I can make the same references. They're going to get it. But that's probably not the right addition to my team. I need somebody who's going to be different from me. And sometimes that likability factor of somebody like us can blind us to the actual best choice.
Yeah, again, I think this is one of the most powerful things that we do. All right. Strategy number 3, you don't invest, meaning you don't invest the time, you don't invest the training, you just simply don't invest.
And I'm always surprised, Meridith, at how many people say people are our top asset. People are our most important thing, people first, all of these things. And then I ask them, so what kind of training do you have? Oh, they stall, they're not really sure, or they have the same old, tired, yearly mandated training that everyone hates. They're not actually investing in a robust leadership program, critical skills development, critical thinking sessions, creative problem solving teams. They're just not investing in it. They're not taking the time to stop and think about where they want these people to be in the future. And that, to me, also, it's consistent with the findings with surveys, and that is 71% of millennials said that they would leave a job within 2 years if they were not being personally and professionally developed.
Yeah, the investment in the skills, the quality, the qualities, the training. I was on with a group of senior leaders this morning, and we were talking about the fact that I get that they have higher priorities. I get that things are on fire in the organization, but you got to understand that both in good economic times and challenging economic times, one of the most powerful influences on any organization and its ability to be successful is the leader. I mean, I'm a strategic planner by training. You are too, Mary. I would take an organization with a great leader that had no strategic plan over an organization with a beautiful strategic plan, well thought out, and bad leadership. It is that important. And you can't expect leaders to be grown, right, Mary? You've got to invest in them.
You absolutely do. And there's a multitude of ways this can happen. We know there is a skills gap in most organizations, and leadership, especially leadership development, can come at different levels, but it doesn't have to be a lot of people think they have to send their teams off for a month at, $100,000 per person, and they're going to come back and they're going to magically transform the organization. That's really not how it works. This is kind of like, are you going to take your vitamins all on January 1st for the entire year, or are you going to take your vitamins every single day throughout the year? And the answer, of course, is you take your vitamins every single day. Leadership development and matriculation of your talent is something that has to happen all the time. It has to be consistent, constant, ongoing, and it has to be shifting depending upon what the organization needs and where you're going. But leadership development has to happen.
Yeah, and I think that one of the most important things you said there, really first, is that you need to determine the skills that people have and the skills that aligned with your avatar. See, these challenges and solutions go together, and once you do that, you'll get the gap. What is it that Mary brings to the table, and where is it that we need a developer? And that's going to skinny down the training. Mary's right. You don't need to send people off for months and months at a time, or invest, hundreds of thousands of dollars. You just need to identify what they need to learn, how they need to learn it, and then invest in the training to do it. And it should be a combination. They definitely need some formal training. They need to be a part of programs and some online courses, but they need time for mentoring. They need coaches. They need some online courses, some things they can do on their own. But in essence, what you need is a training program for them, and one that is customized to the skills that they need to learn. So we are cooking with gas. We have 3 of the 5. We know that one of the biggest mistakes we make is we procrastinate. Now, we don't want to put it off. We want to allow you to come in, and we want to allow you to be able to do this in an easier way and an easier fashion. We know that you don't want to choose your favorites. So you want to build your avatar, people who are best qualified for the job. But once you do that, you've got to invest in them. So let's look at what is next, Mary. Number 4, you keep your succession plan a secret. Now I'm going to turn this one over to you because it is your passion and one of your favorites.
Oh, it's one of my hot buttons for sure. Because, I was working with this great company, and I was brought on to provide executive coaching to the top 4 people, including the CEO. And they had made it very clear that everybody's conversations with me were all confidential. So I'm talking to the CEO, and he was about 61 years old. And he told me he intended to retire within a year. I said, great, let's be starting on the succession plan. And he said, well, Gwen, you're working with Gwen. I said, yes, Gwen is amazing. And he said, Gwen is the person. Gwen has been here for 8 years. She came from this industry. She is sharp. She is educated. She is motivated. She comes in under budget. Her stuff is on time. Her people love her. She understands the money, the people, the regulations. Everybody loves Gwen. She is the heir apparent, and she's going to be great. I said, you know what? She's a great choice. And he said, yeah, I think so too. I said, so when are you going to tell Gwen? And he said, oh, I can't tell Gwen. And I got really nervous because in my conversations with Gwen, she had been telling me, hey, I've been at this company 8 years. I was brought in as a VP. I'm still a VP. It's been 8 years, and I'm getting offers from other companies. I don't know if I should be taking them or not. I've asked the CEO a couple times, hey, where do you see me in a year or 3 years, 5 years? And he dismisses it. So I don't think he trusts me, and I don't think he thinks I have a future at this company. So now I'm stuck. I'm in this confidentiality issue with both of them. And I'm like, to the CEO, I said, I really, really think you need to bring Gwen in and have an honest conversation. She needs to know that she's the person, and you need to start having her attend these meetings with you. You need to have her shadow you. You need to be actively mentoring her now. And she needs to know she has your trust and confidence. And he leaned back in his chair and he said, no, I can't do that. If I do that, she's just going to take her foot off the gas pedal. And I was so frustrated. I didn't know what to do. And I went back to Gwen. I'm like, please go talk to him about this. She goes, every time I do, he just dismisses me. I go back to him. I'm like, please talk to Gwen. He's like, no, no, no. So here I am. I'm like, what are you going to do? 2 weeks later, Gwen got an offer to be a CEO at a competitor's organization, and she took it. And now that CEO had nobody stepping into that role. Nobody had that trust and confidence. Nobody had that experience. And he was now starting from ground zero. And what he said to me was, I probably now won't be able to retire for 3 to 4 years. All because he did not want to have the conversation with her. So please, 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 you may have a succession plan in your head, but please don't keep it a secret. Please let the team know, because it's not just you the succession plan affects. It is everyone throughout the organization, and especially that person who is being groomed for that higher position.
Absolutely. The worst thing you can do is to keep your succession plan a secret. You're going to be surprised at how much power and influence you're going to get with employees and with customers just because they know you have a succession plan. I mean, Mary mentioned that millennials say that they would stay with an organization if they knew training and development was there, if they knew there was a future. The other is it's going to backfire on you. My story with this is that my boss and his boss had decided that I was going to move into my boss's position when he got promoted. The only problem was they never told me. They never included me. They never asked me. And so when they announced Jeff's promotion, just before they did, they came to me and said, congratulations, we're going to put you in Jeff's role. The only challenge was I didn't want that job. I had no desire to do his job and his role. It's not what I wanted with the company. So again, it blew up in their face. I felt guilty. I thought I had damaged my career by not taking it. They were kind of mad because now their plan had blown up. It's just the worst thing you can do. The moment you develop a succession plan, you got to realize the power of communication. Just letting employees know that you have a plan, that there's a future for people, whether they're one of the chosen people or not, it's going to have an impact on them. The other is it has an impact with customers. And Mary, I know you've got a great story around that as well.
Oh gosh, yes. So we had a young lady who was about 21, 22 years old, fresh out of college, was making a decent salary, went to her boss and said, look, I know I should be doing something with my money, something with my finances. I want to be smart. What do I do? So he set her up with his financial planner, a guy about 65 years old named Gary. Gary very nicely spent about an hour and a half with this nice young lady and educated her on, hey, this is an IRA, this is a Roth IRA, this is a 401k plan, this is kind of how this works. This is how, she didn't even know how a stock or a bond or a mutual fund worked, like nothing. He gave her a lot of his time. He was very generous. Her boss had recommended him, high degree of trust. She really liked him, high degree of trust, but she was being sent to Europe for 3 years. And then she was going to be back and she wanted this set up before she went. And so she said, hey, I don't mean to be indelicate, but because I'm going to be out of the country for 3 years and I'm not sure when I'm getting back, I know I'm going to be sending you, say, 10% of my paycheck every month, and you're going to be investing it and watching out for it and communicating with me and all that. And I have a high degree of trust in you. So what happens if something happens to you? And his response was exactly wrong. He said, well, I think my son might be taking over the company. Wait a second. She is now trusting her retirement, her life savings, and all of her disposable income to somebody she's never met and who maybe is going to take over the organization. He did not have a succession plan for his own company. And as a result, she did not invest with him. She went to a larger organization with a team so that there would be backup. Don't underestimate the power of your succession plan and what it has on your customers for your longevity.
Yeah, you have to communicate it. A company that has a succession plan and a company that communicates a succession plan is a company that that is telling their customers and telling their employees they have a plan, they have a strategy, they will be here for the long term, and they have crossed all their T's, dotted all their I's, and have done what they need to do to truly take care of all the people that matter to them long term. So Mary, we have one big mistake left, and that is that you don't go deep enough. Now, this is the one that Mary really kicked off our program with, that I think the thing that truly differentiates Mary and I in the marketplace, both with our book and with our online program and our in-person trainings, is the fact that we believe that succession planning is something that should happen throughout your organization. It should happen at every level. Succession planning is not a C-suite limited endeavor. It is powerful when it goes throughout the organization, and you're going to be surprised at how easy it is to implement a strategic plan that goes deep enough throughout your organization.
That's exactly right. And I remember when I was assigned at Pearl Harbor, and I was a lieutenant, which is an O3, like a captain in the Air Force or the Army, and I was doing a lot of other functions besides my normal job, which is very, very normal in the military. And my very, very senior boss brought me in to say goodbye when I was being transferred. And he said, hey, thanks for all the hard work you're doing. And then he paused, and in a burst of honesty, he said, I confess, I really don't know what you do here at all. so it was a burst of honesty, and good for him. And I said, that's okay, sir. You'll know when I leave. And it was kind of true. I wasn't trying to be sassy or whatever, but I knew that I was covering for so many other people, and they would find out what it is I was actually doing when I left, and those things weren't getting done. But you think about the organization, and you don't think a baby lieutenant, which is fairly junior, of course, in the military, is really going to be that critical. but I can't even tell you how many phone calls I got from different people in the organization. Okay, how do I do that and what happens? And this is after I put together a giant turnover binder for my job. In the military, your job is to put together a binder or a folder so that the next person coming in, they get this on their desk. It's kind of like when presidents leave a letter for the next president, but that's only a very small piece of paper. This is a full binder that tells you what to do. And I left a full binder and they're like, okay, but so-and-so has the binder and I don't have the binder. And what do I do about this? And again, my position was not considered critical at all. And that's what's so interesting is there are some people who are the keeper of the keys. They know things about the organization. And if they were to leave you or something happened to them, there would be a huge knowledge management crisis. So who are those people? And just like a really good coach, great leaders and great leadership, great boards are always on the lookout for great talent, and they look for depth on their team. They want backups. They want contingencies. They want people who can cross-pollinate and cross over to different departments who really get the big picture. And this is where we see many organizations say, well, we've got a replacement for the CEO. Well, okay, so what happens when that CEO leaves? Now, are all those vice presidents going with him or her? Are those people going to be kept because a new person's coming in? What happens next? So this is where depth is so critical, Meridith.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that it's one of the things that you've got to realize is that succession creates ownership at every level. And that's really what you're trying to do with your team, is get them to be as passionate as you are about the growth of your organization. So one of the things that we do when we're developing talent in organizations is that anybody who is up for succession can't move into their new role, can't even advance in the succession plan until they have chosen and started to develop their successor after them. In essence, what going deep enough means, it's about building a culture of succession, about people understanding that one of the criteria for advancement, one of the only ways you're going to advance in the company is if you understand how to develop and mentor other people. And then before you can move up and take on a new role, you have to make sure that somebody is ready to come in behind you. And when you do that, you have created a culture of succession, and succession goes far beyond the C-suite. So there you've got it. We have put it together. Truly the solutions that you need to really put your succession plan in place. You've got to begin by, beginning. Quit procrastinating. Just get off the mark. Choose a few people. Choose them as your successors and get started. Build your avatar. Really decide what that ideal leader is in your organization, because you want to be choosy. You want to be selective. Invest in them. Train and develop. It doesn't need to be a massive investment program, but there's a lot of good options, truly out there. Build that culture of succession. And for goodness sakes, don't keep your succession plan a secret. Communicate it, communicate it, communicate it.
Terrific, Meridith. I think you're exactly right. And, we were on the job when one of those leaders said, so I'm going to need all of this in a binder. We said, oh, but we made you this big binder. We created profiles for all your top team and your emerging leaders and your potentials. And we did this leadership. And the CEO said, no, I'm actually going to need to refer to this more often. So can you put this together in a book? And Meridith, I think that was that moment when we looked at each other and said, I guess we're putting this together in a book. And this, of course, is the Who Comes Next book, Leadership Succession Planning Made Easy. And what I love about this is we did create about 40 checklists, exercises, fill in the blanks, and plans that leaders can use right now to stop the procrastination, take the right steps moving forward, and start the beginning of a great succession plan. And I also love that you and I both have offered to do free consultations with people who have looked at the webinar and said, you know what, I could maybe use a little bit of help on this. Right. Because for some organizations, they need us to show up. They need us to show up, one of us, both of us, to help them figure out their entire succession plan, maybe as part of their strategic planning retreat or as part of their ongoing leadership development. For others, they just need a little tweak, a little course correction on where it is they're going. And like my folks this morning, we meet every single Friday for an hour just to talk through what it is they're doing with their succession plan. So if people want just a free 30-minute consult with one of us, I'm at Mary@productiveleaders.com. Meridith, you are at Meridith with an I at MeridithElliottPowell.com. And we do have the course, the online course, which is at motionfirstnow.com/who-comes-next. And we do have the website, whocomesnext.com. And there you get the free chapter of the book. You get our 5-minute succession plan to get you started in the right direction. And we are available to help if possible. This is our passion, and we are excited to help you.
Yeah, exactly. I really encourage you to check out the online course. Just go in there, look around, and please go to whocomesnext.com. Grab your free tools and resources. Now, before we close out this webinar, I also want to tell you about my good friend Mary and where you can find her. She's one of the smartest women I know in the business. Not only smartest women, one of the smartest people I know in the leadership business. True honor to get to write with her. But find out more about her at productiveleaders.com, and you can find her at email Mary at productiveleaders.com. But her website is chock full of tools, resources, everything that you need to know to really be successful in the leadership space right now. And it's an important space to be expanding your skills.
And Meridith, this gives me the opportunity to talk a little bit more about you and the work you've done. I love the fact that you have such great corporate experience, and I think you've won every award possible in this industry. Top 15 salesperson, top 50 keynoter in the world, always getting an awards, and duly justified and deserved. People absolutely love your programs. They love your sessions, and you are in such high demand. And the resources on your site, your other site, which is MeridithElliottPowell.com, are amazing. You've got webinars, you've got articles, you've got a quiz, an assessment. It's absolutely fantastic. So I really encourage people, check out MeridithElliottPowell.com. You will find that time very well spent.
All right. And just one more reminder to go to whocomesnext.com, check out our online course, and please reach out to Mary and I. We are so happy to give you a free 30-minute strategy session to learn how to build your leadership bench. Leadership succession planning can be really easy when you know who comes next. So thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next time.